Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webcast, Escaping OpenStack, 3 Secrets to Delivering the Private Cloud Developers Want, sponsored by Stratoscale. I'm Raquel Kylander with Application Development Trends, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Before we begin, let me take care of a few housekeeping details. If you have any questions during the live event, feel free to ask them in the Ask a Question box at the bottom of your console. Additionally, this webcast will be recorded, and so keep an eye out for an email with the link to the recording so you can rewatch or share with a colleague. And now, onto the webcast. Our presenters today are Rami, who is the content marketer at Stratascale, and Liaz, a cloud architect and lead developer advocate also at Stratascale. And with that, I'd like to turn the time over to you, Rami.
Okay, thanks, Raquel. I'd like to welcome you all. In this webinar, we're going to be talking all about OpenStack. We're going to see why companies adopted OpenStack in the first place, and then what are the challenges they encountered when they started using it. We're going to see if IT managers can actually deliver what developers want with OpenStack. And then we'll look at companies' plans for retiring their OpenStack deployments, and once they've done that, how they can deliver the private cloud that developers really want. And so Raquel's gone over some of the housekeeping for you already. I'll just note that there are going to also be 3 poll questions during the course of the webinar, and we'll appreciate your cooperation in answering those questions. And if you've got anything to say, hopefully good things, please tweet them out using the Escaping OpenStack hashtag on Twitter. Okay, so let's move right along now, and I'd like to maybe hand over Liaz to Liaz. Can you maybe tell the people a little bit about Stratascale?
Sure. Hi, Rami. Hi, everybody. Well, we all know about the cloud experience, right? So everybody are now going to the cloud. The cloud experience is about consuming services and running your applications and instances and all kinds of goodies on the public cloud. And we're doing it using the services supplied by the public cloud. And you can consume them using the APIs provided by public cloud, such as APIs and services that are provided by AWS, as we can see on the screen. Analytics, containers, meaning Kubernetes, of course, database, SQL, NoSQL, events, and so on, and everything sits on top of them, very basic infrastructure as service, also EC2. Now, this happens in the public cloud, but what do we have on-prem so far? So far, enterprise IT uses the good old hypervisor, virtualization, which is a mix of compute, storage, and networking to provide developers and other users in the organization for computing services. But what they're missing, as and I said before, is the experience of the public cloud. The ecosystem of consuming services and running your applications on top of those services in a very efficient way. And every developer in DevOps will tell you that they're doing everything automatically using their CI/CD, and that's exactly what Stratascale is doing. So Stratascale is putting most of the services supplied by AWS, the major ones, and their APIs on-prem, and you can consume them using your favorite infrastructure as code tool and any other ecosystem from the AWS environment on-prem. So by doing that, you can have everything software-defined, okay? So we have the storage software-defined, we've got databases, networking, everything, again, software-defined. Software-defined means it is automated and monitored. Cloud services, they're there, they can easily consumed, so you can build a whole fleet of applications using the cloud services. And IT always needs to manage the platform. So we're not diverting from that. The platform is easily managed, and everything is managed and consumed using standard public cloud APIs, and you can use the AWS and other public cloud ecosystem.
So basically, you've got the public cloud, but effectively, it's on-prem.
Exactly.
Stratascale platform.
Okay. So we're giving the journey, the public cloud journey, on-prem, and we're saying that when you're doing the cloud journey, you don't have to change your infrastructure to the public cloud. You can stay on-prem and still have the public cloud experience.
Okay, cool. So let's dig right in now. And the OpenStack promise. So what is it that when OpenStack came onto the market, OpenStack was supposed to be this ubiquitous open source cloud computing platform, easy to use, simple to implement, supposed to scale up easily, and meet the needs of users both on public and private clouds. Let's look at each of the parameters in that statement. So is OpenStack really ubiquitous? Well, I don't have the exact number, but I did look up the OpenStack organization's user survey, and they report that the percentage of deployments, both in the IT and telecom industries, now these are the two largest industries using OpenStack. So in both of these industries, the number of deployments dropped significantly between 2017 and 2018. And while they claim that the total number of installations grew, it was really only marginally in the other industries. So I don't know if you can really call OpenStack ubiquitous today. Is it open source? OpenStack is indeed an open source project, but it's just that. It's a project. I don't know if you can really call it a platform with the level of productization that OpenStack has. Is OpenStack easy to use? Well, we'd like to assert that it's not, and we have some stats in our survey that support that. Same goes for how easy it is to implement, and if it's neither easy to use or simple to implement, how well can it work at scale? And our survey also showed that it doesn't really meet the needs of users on the different cloud environments. So a little bit about the survey. We ran it just a few weeks ago, and it was run in two parts. In the first part, we asked developers and DevOps what services they want on-prem. Now, this was independent of anything related to OpenStack. We really just wanted to know what developers and DevOps want. And in the second part, we asked IT managers who were considering retiring OpenStack about their experience with this platform. We wanted to hear what they knew about OpenStack. And the people we asked these questions, we wanted to make sure they were in the right roles, so they were familiar with the material, and that they were also in the right decision-making positions to answer these questions. Okay, so let's dig right into some of the findings that we got from the survey. So one of the things that we found that the two top challenges with OpenStack ended up being a high TCO, interesting for something that's supposed to be open source, and that it doesn't really support innovation, also interesting for something that's open source. We found that, or companies reported that they need a lot of people, many full-time personnel to manage the day-to-day operations of OpenStack. We'll see some numbers later on. IT managers were concerned about the retirement process, that it might take a long time, but we'll also see that there really isn't need for concern there. And we also found that OpenStack is not really the right tool to solve the challenges developers are facing today. So let's dig right in and look at some numbers first about how companies, what they experienced when they adopted OpenStack and what were the reasons for that. And the top triggers were boosting developer innovation. They wanted public cloud features and open source, supporting the company's digital transformation. And then, of course, cost reduction is always a top driver for these things. And I find it actually interesting that cost reduction isn't the top driver, Liaz. What do you think about that? Why is that?
Because people want innovation, right? This is where people are doing innovative things in the first place. They want to get new stuff out there. Mm-hmm. They want features. And then we say public cloud is the go-to place. They want public cloud features, yeah, and they're willing to pay for it. But they want those features.
Yeah. Innovation over cost.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Always. That's what we hear.
Got it. So let's look a little bit about the challenges that these companies experienced, and I already alluded to this. We saw that OpenStack is notorious for taking a toll on organizations' resources. You need a small army to manage the day-to-day operations, maintaining and monitoring the platform. And so respondents were telling us an astonishing 88% of companies said they needed more than 20 people working full-time to manage their OpenStack deployments. And almost half of them said they needed over 60 people to manage their OpenStack deployments. Let's compare the challenges that the developers face with the challenges that IT managers who are burdened with OpenStack. Let's see if there's a correlation there. And we did find a correlation. For example, if IT managers are saying it's very hard to manage and monitor OpenStack, then they're going to have a hard time with their response time and with developers' dependence on IT. Similarly, if developers are concerned about costs, IT are going to have a hard time reducing that when the TCO of OpenStack is that much higher than they expected it was going to be. IT managers also aren't going to be able to provide developers with the tools and technology that they need to support the agility and scale that the developers want. If OpenStack doesn't support innovation, if it doesn't support the features that the IT managers need. And of course, while OpenStack is an open source project, it's just that it's a project. It hasn't been sufficiently productized. Sorry, just a bit of trouble with the mouse here. Yeah, it hasn't been sufficiently productized. And Liaz, what's your experience with that?
So when you say productize, that means it should be a product. Product is something that has a very efficient life cycle, and the life cycle involves all of the components. While OpenStack was just, like I said, it was a project. It was a big tent of many projects. But when you wanted to go through a life cycle, such as upgrade, you needed all those resources to make everything still smooth. But unlike Stratoscale, where you can just, for example, which is a product, you can just go a one click and everything upgrades, all the components.
Got it. Yeah, so that's the mouse click that I was missing. Okay. There it is. So this actually brings us to secret number one of providing developers with a private cloud that they really want. And that secret is really for IT managers to be responsive to your developers. Their biggest challenge, they want your attention. They need your help, so you need to be responsive to them. Okay, so moving on, we're going to now talk about the process of retiring OpenStack. And what are IT managers concerned about in this retirement journey? And retiring a significant infrastructure like OpenStack, especially one that needs many specialized personnel, has concerns with reducing staff headcount. After you reduce OpenStack, you need to decide what to do with all those extra people who are managing it. There's that concern I mentioned with the duration of the retirement process, and there's a concern with downtime also. What about the expected cost reduction on retiring OpenStack? So most of the companies expect to see a reduction in cost, two-thirds of them a reduction of over 20%, and 1/5 of them expect a reduction of over 50% as they retire OpenStack. And we get to our first poll question. And in this question, we'd like you to chime in and let us know what your plans are. Are you considering to retire OpenStack, your OpenStack deployments, over the next 12 months? So I'll give you a few moments to answer that. Okay, I'll just give you another 5 seconds for that. 3, 2, 1, and let's move on. And there you can see the results. Okay, let's see where companies are with their retirement plans. Okay, so some more trouble with my mouse there. There we go. So out of the companies that we surveyed, 58% already retired over 20% of their deployment. 6% have already retired more than 75%. And what are their plans for the future? The vast majority of companies are planning to retire at least 20% of their deployments within 12 months. And almost a quarter of them will have retired more than 75% of their deployments. How long is this retirement process supposed to take? How long are they expecting to take? So again, this is something that I mentioned. Most IT managers, although they had a concern, they stated that they do expect it to take less than 12 months. 10% of them expect it to take even less than 3 months. Okay, so this brings us to secret number 2. And the second secret, of course, is while an IT manager might be concerned about the length of time that the retirement process is going to take, actually most of them estimated that it would take 12 months or less. So I think you can just relax and get started and feel comfortable with that. And so the next thing we wanted to investigate is, after retiring OpenStack, what are the alternative environments that companies are looking at? And the options that we presented were either staying on-prem, going to the public cloud, or going to a managed co-location service, and of course any combination of those. And the interesting thing that came out of that question is that only 21% of companies are moving exclusively to the public cloud. 13% of them are going for a fully diversified strategy, using all the different options for infrastructure to optimize how they manage and run their workloads. But perhaps the most interesting number that came out of this is that 79% of companies plan to keep at least some of their workloads on-prem. And so here's another question for you, Liaz. Why is it that companies aren't going all into the cloud? The cloud is supposedly supposed to be this silver bullet for computing. So why is it that companies aren't going all into the cloud, and how are they going to implement their on-prem clouds?
Well, the simple question, usually the simple answer is that they can't, due to compliance, local compliance regulations, or data sovereignty. They just can't do it. They need to stay on-prem, and we need to supply them the public cloud experience. And more than that, like you said, the cloud is not a silver bullet. Data needs to go on the cloud, and something needs to get off the cloud. And this creates a lot of problems of moving the data in and out of the cloud, and so goes for the applications, images, and so on. Actually, it makes more sense, especially for enterprises with a lot of data, especially sensitive data, to stay on-prem and get the public cloud experience on-prem.
Security, data compliance,
data sovereignty, and data movement. Takes a lot of money and time consuming to actually move data around.
Got it. Okay. So once these companies have retired their OpenStack deployments and moved on to another solution, what are the benefits they're expecting? So we see things like self-service provisioning, auto-scaling, supporting innovation and agility connected to cloud features, things that companies are looking to push their digital transformation. Those things are on the top of the list by a large margin. And we see that cost reduction is only a distant third, even though we saw that TCO, the total cost of ownership, was cited as a top challenge. And of course, a close fourth place is reducing the IT headcount. And again, this correlates to the fact that OpenStack required a small army of people to manage the day-to-day operations. And this brings us to secret number 3. So we come to our second poll question, and we'd like to know the main alternative you're considering to replace your OpenStack environment. Give you for that. Okay, let's move on. There are the responses on that. We do see pretty much the same number of people going to the public cloud as those going to staying on premises. And at a glance, it seems to pretty well match the Venn diagram I just showed you. Okay, so let's move on and compare what were the top cloud services that developers want compared to the top cloud services that IT managers think they want. And we found that there's a match really only in self-service VM provisioning. So you wonder if developers and IT managers are of the same mindset. It seems that IT managers don't really have a good understanding of what the developers want. In virtually all other parameters, there were big gaps in the services IT managers think they should provide and what developers really want. And you can see the starkest example here, right here at the top, with 58% of IT managers thinking that self-service networking is really important, and only 10% of developers citing that as an important service. And so I turn to you again, Liaz. Why is there such a gap in self-service networking and database as a service and all these other parameters? Why is there no match there?
Well, I think this demonstrates exactly the difference between the point of view of DevOps, developers, and IT. DevOps are running the application. They're saying, I don't care how my front end talks to my back end and my back end talks to my database. That's my application.
Yeah.
I just wanted them to talk securely, and this is it, basically. While IT focuses on, I need the infrastructure to work. I need the network to be connected. I'm concerned about the network. And this is exactly this. Yeah. While in the public cloud, there is no IT. Developer can just start a virtual network, and it is there. While in on-prem, IT actually needs to work and make sure that network is connected.
Yeah.
That's the gap.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to secret number 3. And that's, again, for IT managers to get in touch with what developers want and give them what they want, not what you think that they want, because there is a real gap there. And that brings us to our third poll question. And let us know what you want us to do after this webinar. What would you like us to send you? The slide deck? Would you like a short demo that we can give you? We can set that up for you. Or would you like a free consultation with any of our specialists, our experts? We can talk about avenues, pathways you can take to retire OpenStack. Let us know about that. Give you a few seconds for that. Okay, let's move on. I'd just like to spend a couple of minutes talking about the solutions that Stratascale can offer for those of you retiring OpenStack. Stratascale does offer a modernized private cloud, an on-prem cloud for IT organizations who are driven by DevOps, who want to enable infrastructure as code, automation, end-to-end provisioning. These are all the features that developers want. Our platform also runs in edge cloud computing scenarios for large enterprises with geographically dispersed locations. So you can deploy cloud capabilities to the edge while managing it centrally from your data centers. We also have a fully automated cloud-like database as a service, again on-prem, offering a variety of open source or commercial database technologies. And we have an enterprise container platform for managed Kubernetes. Again, everything on premises for your container orchestration, along with a suite of services to simplify app development of the applications running in your containers. And I'd like to hand the microphone over to Liaz now, who's going to go into some more technical detail about our platform. So it's over to you now, Liaz.
Thanks, Rami. So what we see here is the bread and butter of OpenStack, the famous IaaS infrastructure. I'm creating a virtual machine connected to a network, a virtual network, and to some kind of virtual storage supplier. So we're taking that to the next level in Stratoscale. We give the IaaS, the full IaaS experience, but we also bring in the public cloud experience into the IaaS. So on top of the fact that you have the basic IaaS, and the basic IaaS relies on a very well-monitored KVM hypervisor and startup x86 server. You're getting all this packaged into the standard AWS API ecosystem of autoscaling group, okay, which is extremely useful when it comes to IaaS and extremely innovative, especially for DevOps. They love it. Full identity management, what's called in the public cloud IAM. So you have everything multi-tenancy with full RBAC capabilities. CloudWatch. Everybody wants to know what's going on with events and so on, IT and developers, and load balancing. And many other services that actually take the basic IaaS OpenStack that you know and just put it in a whole different level of public cloud experience and public cloud ecosystem. Everything is wrapped in APIs, and you can run, for example, Terraform. Everything can just write the whole application using Terraform on-prem.
So you've got your Amazon experience on-prem.
Exactly.
AWS on-prem, effectively. Yeah. Okay. Okay,
yeah. So let's go. Now we'll take it to the next level. So this is something that OpenStack doesn't have, but that's, again, this is the bread and butter of the public cloud. Where do you keep all the states? Right? So because usually applications, especially when it comes to containers, they don't have any states. Okay? They're stateless. Where the state is usually in a database.
Right.
So the database administration is a whole art, whether it's in the public cloud or on-prem. Developers don't want to know anything about database. From the public cloud, they have the experience of create a database, give me a database, I'm using it, and that's it. I'm not maintaining it. Stratoscale is now bringing full managed service wrapped in cloud experience, in cloud APIs, and you can consume databases fully managed on-prem. If you need SQL, Postgres, MySQL, you can just consume it. It's well wrapped, as you can see here, in all the services, fully integrated with load balancers, monitoring. Again, IAM identity. You can just go ahead and provision that, use that, monitor that, connect that to any one of your VPCs, applications, and so on. And same goes for complete NoSQL clusters. In this specific case, we see Redis. We also have MongoDB. And you can have MariaDB Galera cluster, for example, connected to a load balancer. So on-prem, if you have an application using a database, you just you're one click away from getting your fully managed database with full lifecycle and full replication capabilities.
One-click self-service database as a service.
Exactly, and you can connect all of this. Your DevOps guys can connect all of this into a CI/CD pipeline, which is amazing.
Okay, and our last slide.
Well, that's the new king. Okay, the new king of the neighborhood. This is Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is an enterprise container platform. We have a fully managed Kubernetes service with all the goodies that you need from Kubernetes. So like we see here, we're using the KVM hypervisor. On top of the KVM hypervisor, fully managed Kubernetes that has persistent volume capabilities using actual EBS-like, Elastic Blow Storage-like capabilities for storage, for ingress controller. Again, fully managed AJ proxy used by ELB, actually ALB and NLB, what's called in AWS. You can use those load balancers as ingress to your fully managed Kubernetes node capability. And the Kubernetes is managed. You can scale out, scale in, scale up the nodes, everything using Terraform. Again, put it in your CI/CD, just enjoy it. You can deploy on and on many applications. And again, all of this using on top of our own KVM hypervisor, again, fully managed on standard on-prem x86 servers.
Yeah, so single-click, self-service, on-prem infrastructure as a service, database as a service.
Kubernetes has never been easier to deploy, especially with all of the service that we've described earlier, such as connecting to a database, connecting to a load balancers, and so on.
All in one platform. Cool. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up. Just as a last word, I'd like to recap on those three secrets that we mentioned. So Here it is, the 3 secrets to delivering the public cloud that your developers really want. So IT managers, again, this is for you. You need to be responsive to your developers. They need your help. They need your attention. And retiring OpenStack is not something that is going to take very long. Most of the IT managers expect it to take less than 12 months, so you can just go ahead and get started. And finally, get in touch with your developers. Give them what they want, not what you think that they want. You need to talk to them. And this is pretty much the time to look at the questions that we've been getting.
Great. Thanks, Rami. So we do have a few questions. The first one says, in our move to retire OpenStack, how can I leverage existing OpenStack hardware investments?
Okay, Raquel. So, well, there are different alternatives to OpenStack that can leverage the existing hardware that organizations have. VMware, vCloud is one of them. And of course, there's Stratoscale, the private cloud platform that Liaz just went over, which is hardware agnostic. So solutions like these let you implement a cloud strategy on existing hardware while providing developers with the agility, self-service, and automation that they want, all these things that enterprises are looking for in their digital transformation. And they come with a minimum of maintenance. Everything is managed and kind of one click away, no overheads. And there are other alternatives, of course, but not all of them let you leverage the existing hardware that's now been freed up after retiring OpenStack. We actually recently released a big major blog post about this. Just get on our blog, search for OpenStack alternatives, and you can get all of those details.
Okay, wonderful. Just a quick reminder to the audience, feel free to type any questions that you may have for Rami and Liaz in the Ask a Question box. So our next question is, you mentioned that people want public cloud features. Can you explain a bit more about this, and does that mean going to the public cloud?
Well, as we said, what the developer wants is to improve agility and time to market. And yes, people are going to the public cloud, and that's fine, but it's not usually the most obvious way, especially on-prem. You know, we said people have problems going to the public cloud in terms of compliance and data sovereignty. The public cloud experience is not changing your infrastructure. It's actually getting your developers the public cloud capabilities on-prem. And now, if we look at solutions like Stratoscale, they can cost anywhere between 30 and 50% less than going to the public cloud. And if you, like we said, in Stratoscale, you can find easy-to-compatible APIs, IaaS, that we've seen before, RDS, DBus, and Kubernetes. So you are getting public cloud features on-prem.
Okay, awesome. Our next question asks, why do you say that enterprises are escaping OpenStack when we see some of the world's biggest enterprises still using it?
Okay, I'll take this one, Liaz. And I think I did mention this earlier, that while I actually looked at the OpenStack organization's own most recent user survey, and I think it actually supports what we're saying, because their report showed that, again, the IT and the telecom industries showed a big drop in the number of deployments. And again, while other industries did show some growth, it was marginal growth. And you put that together with things that our survey surfaced. The companies are seeking to retire most of their OpenStack deployments within 12 months. IT managers being challenged with day-to-day maintenance and management of OpenStack. Enterprises needing dozens of people to manage their OpenStack deployment. So I think it's a fair assessment that companies have been disappointed with OpenStack and are now moving to alternatives. So I do stand behind that statement.
Okay. Our next question asks, what do you think is the reason companies are leaving OpenStack?
Well, to answer that, I would look at the benefits companies expect to gain by leaving OpenStack. And again, what we saw in our survey, companies were expecting to be able to finally be able to deliver the public cloud features and support the digital transformation that they've been looking for. And as we saw, reducing costs was really a distant, well, not just third place, it was a distant third place. And we saw that, again, technology really supersedes price here. And but the interesting thing to note is that these are exactly the same reasons that companies adopted OpenStack in the first place. And again, I think that supports our assessment that OpenStack did not come through for these companies on the reasons that they adopted it. And the reasons that companies make these strategic decisions, they remain the same. Companies are just looking to modernize, empower their developers with tools to innovate and develop applications more quickly. Again, things like self-service provisioning, agile methodologies, zero maintenance, open source, and at least open source technologies that are well supported, which is not what we saw on OpenStack. So again, I think those are the reasons that companies are leaving OpenStack.
Okay, great. We have a cost question here. It asks, if OpenStack is an open source project, why are the costs associated with it so high?
Well, we didn't ask this question directly of the reasons for the high TCO, but one we did certainly find that companies found that the total cost of ownership of OpenStack was really much higher than expected. So if I had to, well, make an educated guess, it seems that, again, OpenStack, we found that it's very difficult to manage and monitor. So I can see IT personnel spending a lot more time, and again, time is money, to manage, monitor, and maintain their OpenStack deployments. We found companies needing small armies to manage their OpenStack, and again, it's not fully productized. We do see OpenStack as a open source project, but again, not a full productized product, if you like, that companies can just install and use. And what many companies do end up doing is they may be using a commercial distribution of open source. And while this part may reduce the number of personnel required to maintain it, then you're replacing those costs with the costs of licensing, support, and maintenance fees, which these commercial distributions may require. But any way you look at it, OpenStack is going to end up being expensive to use.
All right, we have another question asking if there's any alternatives to OpenStack that you would actually recommend.
Oh, of course, Stratascale. That's the ideal alternative for us. But to be fully honest, it's probably not the best answer. But then neither is going to the public cloud. We saw that only 21% of companies said they are going all into the public cloud, and that's maybe in line with the soaring costs of the public cloud, and as Liaz mentioned, the problem defined with data sovereignty and compliance, and you have problems of network latency. So we did see that most companies are going for some kind of combination, and it's really a strategic decision for each organization that they need to make where and how to run. Each organization needs to make that decision where to run the different workloads to cover the different needs for security and network latency and so on. I would like to add, though, that for on-prem workloads, I would say that Stratoscale does provide a great solution.
Okay, great. We have another question about actually the Stratascale solution that you mentioned, asking, does Stratascale private cloud solution deliver a hybrid cloud solution along with public cloud services such as AWS, Azure, IBM Cloud, or Google Cloud?
So I think that's an excellent question, whether Stratoscale is in a hybrid cloud. Well, you can burst from Stratoscale to Amazon, for example, by using very simple infrastructure as code technique. such as Terraform and so on. We actually have a very good example in our public GitHub. You're welcome to go to our public GitHub on github.com/Stratoscale, and you'll find there an example of bursting to the cloud. I think that's the best example I can give for a hybrid cloud solution for Stratoscale and Amazon, for example.
Okay. We have someone asking about the surveys that you guys presented and wondering what the sample size was. Do you know that off the top of your head?
So we had just over 100 people in each group. A group of developers and DevOps people in one group, and just over 100 IT managers.
Great. Another question here. What kind of security is included in the platform? Is security effective down to the container level?
So, absolutely yes. Let's refer to Kubernetes, for example. So, like we said, we give the full AWS experience, especially when it comes to VPC on-prem. So we do give all the features from VPC, such as the ACLs and obviously security groups. And once you wrap Kubernetes cluster using that, you're getting a very high level of security. Plus, inside the Kubernetes cluster itself, we're using Weave and for networking and other security techniques and isolation to make sure everything is well secured up to the container level.
All right, let's see. Another question for you guys. How does CloudForms from RH factor into your solution?
Maybe it means CloudFormation. I'm not familiar with the term CloudForms.
From Red Hat?
Red Hat factor.
Does the RH refer to Red Hat maybe?
Maybe Red Hat. Yeah, I'm not familiar with CloudForms. But if anyone wants to email us and go deeper in any of the inquiries, is more than welcome to do so.
Yeah, so we'll be happy to take that question offline.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that looks like that's all the time we have for questions today. Rami and Liaz, do you have any closing thoughts for the audience?
Well, again, just to recap again on those 3 tips, 3 secrets. We did find that OpenStack did not deliver on its promise. Developers were not getting the private cloud that they want, and the way to provide developers with the public cloud that they want on-prem. IT managers need to be responsive. They can move ahead with their OpenStack retirement process, and they need to get in touch with their developers and understand what they want. And as a last thought, you can be sure and that you'll get the report, the survey that this whole webinar was based on. We'll be sending that to you, the 2019 Escaping OpenStack Survey.
My last thought will be go to our YouTube page and see all those nice video clips that we have, and then you'll get a very nice close view on what we say when we talk about public experience.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Rami and Liaz, for your time. And thank you also to the audience for attending this webcast, sponsored by Stratascale and presented by ADT Mag. Have a great rest of your day.